And you can even see what the path is for this Liberal government, right? Over the Christmas holidays, they mentioned a firm commitment to go to electric vehicles as the main source of transportation. Well, we all know it's more about getting someone out of their car and into public transport, into government transport. I don't call it public transport, it's government transport, other than the government telling you where and when you can go based on energy usage, right? We're already being told here in Ontario that you should do your laundry during certain periods of time because of time of usage pricing and a whole bunch of other factors too. And this is just yet another poke at people, right? It's almost like doing, I say this before, I know you've heard me say it, it's being done to you, not for you, right? It's one poke after another. And just to kindly to just beat people down so they just submit to the will of government, because of course as Justin Trudeau thinks, the super smart people in Ottawa are there, and we should just listen to them and accept what they give us, right? What they take from us and decide what we get back in the form of a grant, a rebate, a program, etc.
And isn't that what you just expressed, the hallmarks of a socialist government? It is to a T. I couldn't have summarized that better. That's exactly what this government is doing. We know best. We can control your lives. More regulation.
We'll decide what companies get the grant money, not you, right? And then a company says, well, I think this product is better, but the free government money is over here, so I'll just submit to the government. I'll do what they want. It might not be the best. It might take forever to develop that technology. Don't let the market, right? And as a company, it's easier to sell your product to government. You just got to cozy up, make a few meetings, get hire the right lobbyists and lawyers, and you're good to go. Or you can go in the open market, in the free market, and actually compete with other companies who are trying to develop products that would appeal to the biggest mass possible, or the best price product or service.
Right, which brings up, it's a nice segue to another issue that I know that is near and dear to our hearts and should be to the hearts of Canadians, and that's the nepotism that exists in this particular government. I could go through a ream of ethical violations that Justin Trudeau and his cabinet ministers have all been found guilty of since 2015. Most recent, of course, is Minister Mary Nig. Her ethical violation, not on one occasion, but on two occasions, awarding a contract to a well-known Liberal supporter, a Liberal media personality, particularly on the CBC, and for her to say, I accept responsibility, in my view, is akin to say, I'm only responsible because I got caught. Where do you draw the line, Jamie? And I know that the whole legislation of the conflict of interest was introduced by former Prime Minister Harper. And I've got nothing but good things to say about our former Prime Minister. But one thing that perhaps is lacking in that piece of legislation or regulation is meaningful consequences. There are none. And for Justin Trudeau to give his end of the year interview with the CBC and wax on that the system obviously is working because these bad actors have been found guilty of ethical violations, and that Canadians should find solace in the fact that the system works because they were detected, they were weeded out, that they were found guilty of an infraction. But simply being found guilty without consequence is meaningless to Canadians, and in my view, is the complete opposite impact of open, transparent, and accountable government. Simply stating in the House, I'm responsible, without doing the right thing. Decades ago, Jamie, you know this as well as I do, decades ago, ministers or even MPs found guilty for some of these ethical violations since 2015 would have resigned immediately or would have been forced to resign by the leader of that party, if not the prime minister. That was the right thing to do.
Absolutely, it was the right thing to do. How many times did this happen, though? Over the pandemic, we had a former MP, a Liberal MP, getting money. We had another company run by Liberal-friendly firms that were supposed to build ventilators, had never actually built a ventilator in their whole entire company's history. We have anti-Semites, racists getting government money through the Heritage Department for their funding. We have the trip to Aga Khan, Billionaire Island. We have the We Charity scandal. We have the minister, as you just mentioned, giving tens of thousands of dollars to her buddies. And this just goes on and on and on. And again, it goes back to the last thing we talked about. People are being asked to pay more, work harder, take home less, and give it to Ottawa because they know best. But I tell you what, they are destroying your money. They have devalued it with the printing of money. They continue their overspending. They, despite what the finance minister says about reining in spending, they haven't reined in anything. They are going as hard as ever and devaluing, debauching your currency at the same time, making your savings worth less. It's just an onward spiral. And now we have an article out today that I'm looking at right now that talks about children's medication. It is still, despite what the government says, they're getting all this extra supply, there's still bare shelves everywhere.
How could this be happening in a G7 country? We raised this issue, as you know, Jamie, several months ago. It was an issue in the United States long before it hit our borders. The Americans dealt with it quickly and responsibly to ensure that children in that country receive the medication. We brought this to the attention of the government. We thought that it was falling on deaf ears. We kept pressing the issue. We heard from the Minister of Health that steps were being taken. I think the handicap or the holdup was the fact that there were some contracts from other countries in the world, but they could not supply it to Canada because it didn't have the French label attached to the bottle itself. So there was a bit of a hiccup there in terms of receiving that product to fill our empty shelves. And I thought, I can almost swear to this point where I thought Minister of Health Duclos indicated that problem was going to be rectified in very short order and that our shelves are going to be filled to address this need. Now, to hear from you that these shelves are still being empty and families are still being impacted should never, ever be happening in this particular country. And again, so just another failure of delivery. This particular government is failing Canadians on so many levels, Jamie. It's really hard to keep track because every day it seems to be another controversy or another issue that is coming up that should not be happening. This pandemic has impacted the entire world. And to read about countries who have planned and organized themselves government-wise to ensure that as we transitioned from the heart of the pandemic to post-pandemic recovery, that the delivery of services would not be impacted to their residents. And I hear success stories all around the world where governments, not necessarily first world governments, but governments took the appropriate steps to plan. Again, to our leader's point, this government gets an A for announcements, gets an A for sounding as if they are going to make life better for Canadians, but they fail miserably on deliverables. Canadians expect a level of competency from this government. And I can't think of one department that the federal government has jurisdiction over right now that is not letting down, if not failing Canadians. And it should not be happening.
Absolutely, especially when people are being asked to pay even more. 2 million cases backlogged at the immigration department, people waiting to have their families reunified, people waiting to bring their trades into this country to help our economy. And yet we still see this flailing about by this government. And it just doesn't seem to be any solution to that other than to ask for more money or throw more money at a problem. At the same time, we are not seeing any changes in their cabinet in terms of bringing in people who might be competent at the same time to help fix these problems. And again, we're going to division again, back to the old thing, right? During the last campaign, Justin Trudeau's numbers fell. All of a sudden, non-vaccinated versus vaccinated. That
Right.
was the division point. Right now we're firearms owners and non-firearms owners, right? Like just picking groups of people and putting them against each other to create that distraction for us to kind of take our focus off why all this stuff is that was working suddenly isn't working.
Well, he and his government can continue on that path, or they can accept the reality that the ever increasing crime that we are seeing is impacting liberal held ridings as well. And I hope that his government and his MPs are fielding the same number of concerning calls and emails that you and I are getting and our colleagues are getting, because this is not a political issue. This is a national crisis that needs to be dealt with. If the Trudeau government doesn't want to deal with it, let's bring on an election, because we've got the solution. We will bring trust. We will clean up the streets. We will give Canadians confidence that our criminal justice system can work and will work.